Welcome to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laguna Beach. My name is Noreen Kukinen, and I'm pleased to be the worship associate this morning. It's a difficult job for me, but I believe in the value of communal worship and the support we give each other as we try to be better human beings. I wish to be a moving part in the machinery of that effort. All machines need a little oil once in a while, so that's why we are here. That's why I'm here. We're dedicated people who share our skills in the spiritual journey. We feel fortunate to have our music director, Carol Cole, enhancing our spiritual experience every Sunday with her beautiful renditions of our important hymns. We are grateful for those who have taken on the AV tasks in their hybrid complexity. Today, Pam Floodman and Don West Jr. are diligently working to meet our technical needs. Thank you to them and to all our members who do a lot of things that are never reported on from this podium, but there are a lot of good people here. We're an awesome community. What is community? Some beautiful words by someone with the name Starhawk on Worship Web describe what we have at UULB and what we want to keep. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, some place where we can be free. On Sunday mornings, we share this time as a community by Zoom or better in person on Cypress Drive. Let's work at joining our voices during our question and answers with our guest speaker, Mr. Brewer, following Peace on Earth. If you're in the church, please come to the front to participate with our friends on Zoom, and we will try to keep our voices soft and eliminate side conversations so they can hear us. A community means everybody being together, and this is a way that we can be together with those on Zoom. This congregation is open to all who are in accordance with our principles, our mission, and our vision. We unconditionally welcome any and all of you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and moral beings. We gather because we share the same values, and we can help each other to lead a meaningful, purposeful life. For me, our first two Unitarian Universalist principles, belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and having justice, equity, and compassion in our interactions with other people, are particularly meaningful to me today as we learn about the issues of homelessness and food insecurity. The Unitarian Universalist Association, in its justice ministry, encourages us to work for justice, equity, and compassion in our relationships and for systemic change in our society. We know that the escalation of economic inequality fosters 1,000 injustices, from climate change to homelessness, from mass incarceration to low-wage worker exploitation. Economic inequality also disproportionately impacts people of color. A better world is possible, and we strive to be part of the solution. Our speaker today, LaVal Brewer, CEO of South County Outreach, describes how the solutions his organization implements are making a difference in many lives. Like a beacon that shines over a stormy sea, this agency lights the way to a safe harbor for many in crisis from homelessness and hunger. South County Outreach has worked for 2 decades to combat these problems. Congratulations to them for successfully tackling some of our society's toughest problems. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light the beacon of hope as represented in our chalice, a sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. Today, Candy Strock, whose service to this congregation is awesome, will light our chalice, pardon me. Thank you, Candy. Our centering thought today is seen on your Zoom screen, on our screen here. We are here to awaken from our illusion of separateness. A quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. We're most powerful when we understand that all the issues we care most deeply about are fundamentally interlinked, and that each of us has a role to play in building a world in which all people can be free and thrive. Our opening hymn this morning is number 1007. There's a river flowing in my soul. Carol Cole. Thank you, Carol.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a lovely morning. Please join me with this wonderful hymn, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. There's a river flowing in my soul.
Carol. Our next prayer together is a unison affirmation. You'll be unmuted. Please add your voice to the joyful cacophony as we affirm our beliefs. May we be
reminded here
of our
of our
highest
highest aspirations,
and inspired
inspired to bring our gifts of love
Love
and service
to
to
the
the
altar
altar
of
of humanity.
May we
And may we know
Yeah.
once again
again
that we are
that
not
we are not
isolated,
isolated beings,
but connected
in mystery
mystery
and
and
miracle
miracle
to
to
the
the
universe,
universe,
to this community, and
and to each other.
a circle of care. There's a slide to show. The Reverend Lisa Bove Kemper writes about the circle of care. In this circle of care, we make space for the complexity of life, the myriad experiences that bless and break our hearts. The truth of human experience dictates that on any given day, we each come to the table with hearts in different places. If you wish to share what is in your heart today, we'll start with our Zoom friends. This is also a time within the sanctuary for lighting candles by those who have a joy or sorrow that they hold silently today. Please raise your hand to be recognized and unmute yourself. The recording will be stopped. Needs at this point. We're part of a church that has a grand vision of a world that's filled with peace, joy, love, justice. There are UU congregations, both large and small, but no matter what the size is, every congregation depends on each of its members to make progress toward that ideal. Each one of you, by your commitment of time, energy, and resources, helps make that grand vision real. Individually and together, we're Unitarian Universalists, working for a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. At UUFLB, you have generously given food so that others have enough. We give money so that the work of UUFLB can continue. To that end, please refer to the slide on your screen or to the email notice that was sent to you to announce the service today for ways to support our congregation. Your donation is needed. I receive, to you I give. For our meditation today, I've chosen a slide. The image or metaphor of the lighthouse over the water has a lot of meaning to me. We can use the talents that we have, as small as our group is, but we can use our talents to help other people have better lives too. For the meditation, I've also chosen a prayer, one that was written by the Reverend Roger Lee Ray, a progressive Christian minister from Springfield, Missouri. I wasn't familiar with his name, so I looked on his Facebook page, and it said we had one mutual follower. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. And I looked, and it was Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez, our former minister. And I thought, well, that's a good recommendation. So I'm going to read a prayer written by Reverend Roger Lee Ray. And then Carol will play as we prepare to hear from our speaker this morning. So in the words of Reverend Ray, we gather today at a turning point in history. For thousands of years, poverty was caused by scarcity. But now, in our technologically advanced age, poverty is caused by greed. Our ancestors could not bring an end to hunger, homelessness, illness, or ignorance. But we find ourselves at a point in time when we can. We confess that we have somehow kept peace with an economic system that perpetuates human suffering without any plausible justification. We resolve anew to work more diligently to help create a more just world. Our guest speaker today is Mr. LaVal Brewer. He's president and CEO of South County Outreach, a nonprofit dedicated to helping the homeless and the hungry help themselves. Mr. Brewer has more than 30 years' experience in nonprofit management. His goal is to transform Outreach's food pantry into a place where people who are in short-term crisis situations can feel like they are shopping for nutritious, healthy food in a normal grocery store without having to pay. He also hopes to partner with cities and donor groups to create revenue that will advance the organization's goals of helping people who have fallen behind on rent and utilities and help them better themselves so they can ultimately escape the hunger and homelessness cycle. It's about empowerment. Mr. Brewer is a board member for Center Club Orange County and council member for the County of Orange Senior Citizen Advisory Council. He also serves as an elder at the Presbyterian Church of the Master in Mission Viejo, where he resides with his wife and 3 daughters, who he reports provide him with inspiration every day. So please welcome Mr. LaVal Brewer.
Thank you. Good morning. I have to add to that bio. Recently, we added to our family, and we didn't add new humans to our family. We added new humans to our household. My wife's in-laws just moved into our home from Battleground, Washington. So we've added my mother-in-law and my father-in-law to our home. So I'm missing them this morning. They're getting a haircut, and I'm here with you. So I always like to start off by talking about my family, because if you get to know me, you get to know my heart, you get to know my heart, you get to know why we're doing what we're doing. So you've already kind of shared that I have 3 girls and a wonderful wife and 2 in-laws. My youngest is a freshman at University of San Francisco studying nursing. So she's off to become a neonatal nurse. She wants to help young families and young parents who are just having children find joy and happiness in a place where that's always really a very big struggle. My middle daughter moved out just as my in-laws moved in, quite convenient. She moved to Los Angeles, and she's a film and television major working in the film industry and behind the TV. She does production. And then my oldest daughter lives in our family home that we've had since before I was born, my grandparents' home in South Los Angeles, and she's an architect. And then my wife works at a elementary school here in Mission Viejo called Oxford Prep, and she works with students with special needs. So that's my family and my in-laws. We'll talk about them later. I grew up in South Los Angeles, right around, if everyone see Boys in the Hood? Okay, Boys in the Hood, the place where Doughboy got shot, right? Those railroad tracks. I don't know if you remember that part. I lived across the street from those railroad tracks. Was born in Los Angeles, born in South Los Angeles. And so you talked about a musician today, Kev Mo. And Kev Mo has a song called Government Cheese, which I listened to today. You brought it up and I was like, let me listen to that. And my history is that my grandparents were hardworking people in Los Angeles, and I didn't know that we were short on money. Never knew it. Never understood that was the case. We were a middle-class family living in South Los Angeles. And but my mom and my dad got divorced, and at some point in time, while we were in our first home, she was struggling. We were struggling, and money was tight. Money was probably non-existent. I was too young to really know that. But I did know government cheese. I did know government cheese, and I used to make some fabulous grilled cheese sandwiches from that government cheese. And it's only recently that I started to really reflect on that government cheese and reflect on that time in our lives when we needed support and we needed help, but yet we didn't know we needed help because there was always something that made everything joyful. We still had a house over our head. We still had food on the table. We still had clothes. We had everything we needed. I didn't know that we struggled. And that, I'll tell you how that manifests in the work we do today. But when I look back on that and I think back on that, I had a joyful childhood. I had a joyful life. All was really great. Fast forward, I also started working for the YMCA back in April 5th, 1985. It's a very, very great day. It's the day before my mother's birthday. That's why I can remember it so well. And in working in the YMCA, I was once again reminded when you just talked about community, how the YMCA ingrained in me and ingrained in us as YMCA staff members and leaders, that community, small communities, are what the Y is all about. If you've ever experienced a YMCA, it may be a big building, and in some communities around the world, around the country and around the world, they are the cornerstone of the community. But for the most part, when you drill down into it, it's a small community. It's the small community of a classroom where people learn how to dance, or a swim class, or it is a father and child outing where dads get to take their kids out and spend time with them in a purposeful way. And as my wife said, give her a chance to be away from children for at least 2.5 days, which was just joyful for her. And that small community, that ability for people to come together and be with the people who are right next to them, their neighbors, the people who they may not necessarily live next to, but they live close to, has always stuck with me as one of the most important things that nonprofits can do. It's not just solve the problems of people that people have in front of them, or not just to be the solution to something, or not even to just bring joy, but to be able to bring a small group of people together and have community. And community is so important. It is one of the vital things that we all strive for. When we think back about community, we think often about when you say, I'm going to go live somewhere, oftentimes we're more concerned about the place where our home is than the home itself. We actually start with that. We often start with, I think I want to have a house like this, but where is that house? Like, where is that home? Where does it exist? What block is it on? What school is it next to? What are the people around it like? What does the street feel like? Where are the amenities of food and enjoyment that surround that home? Before we even get into how many stories, how many square feet, is there a backyard, the community will make or break the choice we make about where we live. Community is so ingrained into everything we do and we experience. So I grew up in South Los Angeles. I know that community. I moved to Mission Viejo. I know this community. I know that community. I live in South Orange County. I know our community in South Orange County. I experienced Los Angeles County and other places, all of them around community. So why am I standing here? I'm standing here because I made a commitment when I came to South County Outreach back in June of 2020 that I would not just go to work and help to feed people and keep people housed, but that I would spend my day, in particular Sundays, in places where community happens. Churches and synagogues, in places where people gather, and that I would, over time, increase my time out in small communities like this to share the good news of the work that we do. And to not just say, hey, South County Outreach, we helped this many people, we gave this many meals. All that's great information. I'd be more than happy to share it with you. But for most part, I really want to share why. Like, why do we do this? Why do we do it? Why do you support it? Why should others support it? And not necessarily why you should support South County Outreach. And I know that may seem like odd from a person who raises money and gets support, but why you should support the concept of hunger prevention and homeless prevention. The concept is more important than the where. Right? The concept in this case is more important than the where. Why should we support that? So here's why. Sorry, here's what we believe. Let's say what we believe first, and then I'll tell you why. Here's what we believe is important. We believe that no one should go to bed hungry without a place to call home. That is our current belief. That's the vision we have in our work, is that we are trying to solve for no one to go to bed hungry without a place to call home. Two, what we believe is we believe that prevention is the key to solving that problem for us. For our organization, it's about prevention. For other organizations, it might be about turning that cycle backwards. In other words, someone who is now fully hungry and doesn't have food, or someone who is without a place to live, without an abode. That's not our place. We've decided that our place is further upstream around prevention, to prevent people from becoming hungry and to prevent people from having homelessness. And I will tell you how we do that. We also believe that the way that we solve that is through learning and growing. So the reason why I commit to coming out on Sundays when I'm not working at my church behind the soundboard is because I believe that if we teach people and we share what is actually happening in the world and how they could be engaged in the solution of that, or how they can be engaged in understanding how to be involved in that space, because we're talking about community, which is our neighbors, actually sometimes the people who lives next door to us, or the person who lives in our home, that will help people to understand how they can live into their own personal mission of preventing hunger and homelessness. So finally, we also believe that no one's just hungry. So while you have done a wonderful job of collecting food, I've seen the baskets in the outside, I've seen some donations come through. While we know that the food is the presenting space for poverty and low income in our community. When I say poverty and low income, I mean constant low income, not just sudden low income. But poverty and low income in our community, we know that no one is just hungry. So often when people present to us around food, we recognize that it's more than that. Because the food is the part that brings you forward. There are other pieces underneath that we believe we can help with. So in our final belief is that no one's just hungry. So how do we lean into their other issues or other things that are happening after they receive the food they need to be well? So we think that if everyone understands that their neighbor could be hungry and homeless at any point in time, that we would have a different view of how hunger and homelessness exists. A completely different view. Because it's not someone else, right? It's not that person I've never met. It's not that person that I see on the corner. It's not that person who's begging over here. It's not that person on the side of the street with a sign. It's not the other. It's not the person who is presenting with mental illness, or it's not the person who is presenting with some other type of addiction. It's not that other person. Because, by the way, those other people live in homes next to us. And we just don't know it sometimes, because when we close the door, and as I heard last week, we put on the mask, that keeps us from seeing the truth that's happening in the world. The reality is our neighbors are our neighbors, and our neighbors at sometimes are hungry, and our neighbors are sometimes at threat of being homeless. And for South County in particular, not that this is it's a place where it doesn't happen other places, the vulnerability of saying that you're hungry and the vulnerability of saying that you might lose your home is sometimes so tragic and so hard for someone to utter, that they live in the pain and the suffering of not being able to put enough food on the table and not being sure if they're going to live in that home in the future. Whether this is rental or whether it is a mortgage or whether it is the house that you live with your family that you may have to leave. And that vulnerability, in my mind, is one of the places where we have to spend time unpacking the ability for people to be vulnerable and to state, I'm having troubles. Because when we do that, and when people do that, the ability for them to then get the help that they need reduces the stress that happens in their lives, in their households, in the neighborhood, with their children, with their family. It reduces that stress. And when we reduce that stress, we actually can get to a place where people can help themselves. That they actually can lean into, okay, so I've got that figured out. I'm going to go here and get food. And over here, I'm going to get some help with my housing. Okay, how did I get into the situation? How can I get out? What do I need to do to get out? So that we can get to the point, our organization, get to the point to where we're actually helping people figure out how to get themselves out of poverty. And that we support them through that practice, not by giving them, but by supporting them. Because we've already given to them, right? We've already invested in them by food or with rental assistance. It's that next step. It's not just, here's the food, I love you, goodbye, see you later. It is a continuous, constant engagement into your community, into your neighbors that allows them to grow out of that poverty. Remember I said that I had government cheese? No one knows that. Most people do. I've been telling a lot lately. But if I hadn't opened my mouth and said that, the people were like, huh? Not you, LaVal. You're not that. You're not the picture of that. I'm not now. I'm not today. But I was. And it wasn't like I did something special to get out of it. With the exception of listen to my family and listen to my mom doing all the things they need to do to lift themselves up and going to college and staying employed and sometimes not doing stupid things. Everyone is in that space. Everyone could be in that space unless you have neighbors and friends and family who are committed to helping you stay out of that poverty. And some people just don't have that. They just don't have a friend or a neighbor or a family member that says, can I help you? Can I walk alongside with you? Not just can I walk alongside you so you become a member of the believing community, but can I walk alongside you because you're my neighbor and you're my friend? Remember that community that I said we want to be in? Well, if we're going to be in that community, then we need to be a member of that community. And to be a member of that community, we need to love our community. In order to love our community, we need to show up. We need to show up for people, which is what you've done. So how do we show up? How does South County Outreach show up? At one point, we showed up with our food pantry. So I don't know if you've been to our food pantry. I invite you to come down and visit. It is a absolutely wonderful place. By the way, I partner with Laguna Pantry. So Laguna Pantry and we have a long, I've been over there several times learning from them. And we work together. And actually, I was on a call with her the other day and she said, you're getting pressed in Laguna Beach. I go, is that a problem? She goes, no. I'm like, okay, great. Awesome. How do we show up? So we've had a client choice food pantry for many years. So a client choice food pantry is a food pantry where the client, an individual, a family member, shows up to our pantry. They park their car. They get out of their car. They check in. They get a shopping basket. It's like a regular shopping basket. Actually, it's not like a regular shopping basket because our shopping baskets are still metal and all shopping baskets now are plastic. I probably need to change those. They get a shopping basket and they walk up and down the aisles and they choose the food that they would like to have. You get to pick for their size of the family. Before the pandemic, we lived in a scarcity model, though. And that scarcity model was that when a client came in to shop, we had a caring, I do mean this, a caring, loving volunteer walk with them as they went up and down the aisles. And they would say, okay, you can have 2 of those, you can have 3 of those, you can have so many of these based upon the size of the family. The pandemic changed that because we, one, couldn't let people in the pantry for about a year and a half. And it gave us time to think, do we really need to do that? And this came from our discussion internally about dignity and respect. So during the middle of the pandemic, probably around this time last year, we started asking the question, is our client choice food pantry, which we believe is very dignified and very respectful, is it actually dignified and respectful? Is it actually? Because we asked ourselves, why do we walk with people to choose food? Because if I was in a grocery store, I don't think there'd be a grocery person walking with me saying, okay, you can have 1 of these, you can have 2 of those. That's not what I would experience in my own grocery shopping. So we stopped and said, is there a way for us to make the grocery shopping experience for someone who doesn't have money as equal, as dignified, and as respectful as someone with more money than they could need to buy their own food? Is there a way for us to do that? And the answer was absolutely. Absolutely. And we changed our mindset from scarcity, in other words, do we have enough money, enough food to feed people, to abundance, that our community will always provide the food we need to make it possible for people to eat, as long as we communicate it well enough that this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. So we reopened our food pantry client choice to our shoppers walking through the pantry last July. And we made 2 critical changes beyond the not having a volunteer walk with them. The 2 critical changes was we changed the pantry to a market. So we are a food pantry, but when you walk through the doors, you're walking through the market. That's what we say. So when you go inside the market, we're talking to our clients, when you go inside the market, here's your list of things, here's how you go through, and here's where you get the other pieces. So we kind of gave them an idea of how you navigate the market. And then the second thing we're in the process of doing is we're changing the market to feel like a scaled down Trader Joe's. So that when you walk into the market, that you walk into the market like you were walking into any other small grocery store. And that you actually felt like you were in a Trader Joe's. We all know, while Ralph's and Trader Joe's have similar products, it's different to walk through a Trader Joe's, right? It's just different. It feels different. We didn't want to just be the market. We didn't want to just be a Ralph's or a Albertsons. We wanted to make people who are walking through our market feel so special without saying you're special, without treating them differently in a space. We want to just make it so. So those are the first 2 things we did in our client choice market, and we continue to do that work. The second thing we made a decision on last year this time was that we were going to raise more money in order for us to ensure that the healthy choices that you make when you come to our market are actually available for you to make those healthy choices. So while we have macaroni and cheese, which you can get from Costco for $8 in a big giant set, like you can get tons of macaroni and cheese, we recognize that without the milk and the butter, the macaroni and cheese meant nothing at all. And that's kind of expensive, the milk and the butter part. It's actually more expensive than the box of macaroni and cheese. And we also recognize that we needed to have fresh vegetables that were always fresh. And while we get some fresh vegetables from Grocery Rescue and from others, sometimes they were close to the end of their shelf life. And we did not believe that that was dignified or respectful enough for our market. So we started buying milk, eggs, butter, and produce. Fresh produce, onions, not just leafy produce. We started buying onions, we started buying tomatoes, we started buying garlic, we started buying limes, the things that will allow a person to, in their home, make a nutritious meal. Because what we know is that when you make a nutritious meal, you are nourishing your body in a different way, but you're also telling yourself that I live here. I live here. And the impetus of that, the final piece about that was and is baking cookies. Because when you bake a cookie, cookies or cookie, there's something about it, right? Cookies, banana bread, those baking items that make you kind of go, right? That feeling of home. And in some cases, that memory of a time loving with a family member or with someone else in that special recipe. Which brings us to why we believe homeless prevention is critical to our success. And it is that when you are in a home, you can make your own food, you can have better lifestyles, you can have peace and rest, you can come together, you can sleep well. When you're outside of your home, none of those things exist. None of those things exist. And in some cases, when you have a family and small children, the additional stress that is put on a child and on a family because you're outside of your home, because you don't have a roof and a place to lay your head and a place to cook fresh food, produces really bad results, terrible results. And we believe that we need to prevent people from experiencing those terrible results. So the way we do that is by doing rental assistance. So we support families right now with rental assistance to keep them in their homes so they don't fall into an eviction. Because once you're evicted, you have a record. Once you have a record, the person who's going to rent you a new home is looking and saying, oh, you've been evicted. That application goes to the bottom of the pile. No, it doesn't. That application goes in the trash. Not good. Not helpful for anyone. And bad things happen from there. So for us, we want to be swimming upstream and in the prevention place to where people are earning enough money to where they don't need to get food from us. But when they do come from food from us, they feel like they're getting from a regular place so that they can spend their monies to stay in their homes. And they can also spend their monies to help their children, their families to stay out of poverty. So if I can divert people from putting money into their food, or I can help them with their rent, and we teach them, in other words, our next pillar of our work is around education and development. And we teach them how to save. And when I say how to save, not you should save, because we've all heard that, right? We hear that all the time. You should save. You should save X percentage of your income. You should save this. You should save that. But they never say how, right? Because that's the secret. You can come to me and I can teach you how. Buy the stocks, financial plan, come to me and I can teach you the how. We don't want anyone to have a barrier to that. The how is what we're leaning into next.
Very low and or non-existent, and concentrate on being heard. So our closing hymn today is number 370. All people that on earth do dwell. Carol Cole, please play for us your beautiful music.
Thank you, Noreen. Hopefully everyone can hear. We kind of lost you guys for a while. So I'm going to play for you just a bit of All People That on Earth Do Dwell. We haven't sung it that often, so here's just a little bit of it before we start. Here's your intro. Here we go. All people that on earth do dwell, singing out our cheerful voice, let hearts in expectation
please help with our chalice extinguishing. Thank you, Candy. May the words we heard here today increase the compassion in our hearts for those whose lives are filled with the day-to-day insecurity of homelessness and hunger, or who face the odds of that happening to them. Thank you, Mr. Brewer, LaVal, for the compassion you and South County Outreach give to those in greatest need. Together we'll sing, "Let There Be Peace on Earth," and after, please come to the front of the church to join Mr. Brewer, LaVal, in questions and answers with our Zoom friends. So if you would stand, we can sing "Let There Be Peace on Earth" together.